Welcome to Business Talk, presented in collaboration with the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, from the heart of southeastern Ohio at the University of Rio Grande TV studio. Our goals are simple: promote the University of Rio Grande and the Ohio State University South Centers, as well as advocate local small business and their support organizations. More importantly, promote southeastern Ohio as a wonderful place to live, explore, and learn. There are many different ways you can find us. The University of Rio Grande Cable Access Channel 17, live online at blogtalkradio.com, and on YouTube if you are unable to catch our show live. Introducing our co-hosts, Jason Winters, Mike Thompson, Patrick Dengel. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey, welcome back to our show. Today is a really good special guest that has come on our show who's going to be talking about things that are near and dear to everyone's heart. And I know that at lunchtime I've learned quite a bit. You know, I was mentioning to our guests that about 12 years ago, as a small business development counselor, an individual came to my office. She looked to be about 40, but she was only about 26, 27 years old. She had indicated that she had been a victim of identity theft to the point that not only could she not get any kind of banking, she literally had to start over again. She had to get a new Social Security number, new name change, because she was so devastated. And it's interesting, the biggest problem that she had indicated was that she was alone. She would go to a bank asking for assistance, and the bank said, "Hey, sorry about your luck, but when you get everything straightened, come back and see us." And I can imagine the worry and the amount of concern that she had. Well, it's through the Attorney General's office, Mike DeWine. I think that other Attorney Generals, offices, other individuals really took situations like that to heart, and they have been building a really good program for the state of Ohio, and I'm quite sure for many different places, ways in which victims of identity theft can fight their theft, but that they are not alone. And so it's with great pleasure that I introduce Ryan Lippe. Ryan is with the State of Ohio Attorney General's office. He's a consumer protection educator. And Ryan, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Patrick.
Really appreciate all the information. I am just amazed at how much information that Mike DeWine, the State of Ohio Attorney General's office, has made available to the consumer public.
Thank you, and we always strive to get that out to the public. That is what one of my obligations is at the office, is to give presentations to groups, continue keeping presentations updated where they need to be updated, making sure that articles are written that go into our consumer protection section newsletter called Consumer Advocate. So we're constantly finding new ways to communicate and also finding new issues to communicate about. Just in looking at some of the information that you have available, there are a lot of issues. Well, let's talk a little bit about identity theft. The victims. What programs are there available that will help? Yeah, we've had for 3.5 years or so, we've had an identity theft unit, which was created by the Attorney General's office to help Ohioans that have fallen victim to identity theft. And first of all, I'll just tell you, identity theft occurs when someone obtains and uses your personal information without your permission to commit a theft or to commit a fraud. You are not yet an identity theft victim merely if you are a victim of a data breach, which is a horrible vulnerability that consumers are put in, whether it's large corporations
corporation, an insurance company. There are lots of data breaches that have occurred just in the last couple of years. That data breach makes consumers more vulnerable to becoming victim of identity theft, but it's only at the time where someone steals the information and uses it fraudulently that they're actually a victim of identity theft. And that's where the identity theft unit steps in. That is a unit where we have two different paths a victim can go through. They can either choose the self-help path, where we provide them a guidebook, we provide them all the steps they need to clear up their identity, the form letters it takes, all the information they need to do it themselves. But realizing that that can be very burdensome, we also created a traditional assistance program where we can actually do some of the work for a consumer. After they file a police report, after they fill out what we call an identity theft affidavit, some little paperwork assignments, we then give them over to a consumer advocate that can actually work with them on their behalf to reestablish their true identity with creditors, collection agencies, banks, other organizations where their identity may have been at risk. So we actually do take a very proactive approach to helping victims, and we're lucky to have that in the state of Ohio, those real resources people can go to for immediate assistance.
Well, in looking over the information that you have, I definitely agree. Now, let's just suppose I'm minding my own business, and for one reason or another, one of my credit cards, the identity gets stolen. Mm-hmm. And let's just suppose I happen to notice on my report that there are 6 or 7 items that have been charged against my credit report that I wasn't responsible for. What do I do? Do I immediately contact you?
The immediate thing would definitely be to contact our office, but even before you do that, you certainly should file a police report if you're a victim of identity theft with your own law enforcement agency in whatever jurisdiction you live in. Also, it's important to place an initial fraud alert on your credit reports as well, and you can do that by calling one of the credit reporting agencies. What that initial fraud alert does is, for 90 days, it'll help protect you from the continued exposure you may have on your credit report. It requests that creditors ask additional information, take extra steps before they issue credit in your name within those 90 days. Also, as you mentioned, you can definitely order copies of your credit reports and report any errors. And certainly contacting the Ohio Attorney General's office to get our assistance would be important as well. Whether you choose the self-help approach where we give you a packet of information and you try to do it on your own, or whether it's the approach where we assign you a consumer advocate to work on your behalf, we have all those materials at the ready. In fact, if you think you can do it yourself and it becomes too burdensome, you can switch back and have the traditional assistance apply to you. So we will definitely offer that assistance even midstream if you're not getting what you want in terms of results, or if it's simply taking up too much of your time. And I can tell you just from hearing victim stories, it can take weeks, months, or even years for a victim to truly get out from under an identity theft and all the ramifications.
Yeah, I in just looking at that one individual that occurred 12 years ago, as I said, she aged because of the worry and because of all the difficult kinds of things, and I would imagine that most people that have not been a victim would probably say, well, it'll never happen to me.
Yeah, I mean, the fact is, we are getting letter after letter after letter in the mailbox saying that our personal information has potentially been compromised. Whether it's a big card company, a government agency. I mean, there's all kinds of folks are having to send out letters notifying consumers that their personal information has been breached. Now, will that lead to identity theft? Well, only time will tell. I mean, certainly it may not. If the information is available publicly, but nobody is using it to commit a fraud or a theft, it's not identity theft. But just the exposure, just the vulnerability means that an awful lot of people should at least be putting an initial fraud alert on their credit account, on their credit bureau accounts. And again, that applies for 90 days. It's completely free. And if you think you're a victim and not certain, you can still place that initial fraud alert on your accounts. So at least creditors have to take an extra step to verify your identity before they issue new credit in your name.
I see. So in other words, if I have a fraud alert on there, and then I want to use my credit card, would that prevent the store from taking your card?
No, not necessarily at all. But what it would do is if you walked into a new department store and wanted a new credit card or tried to somehow give out your personal information for a new line of credit, that creditor then has a responsibility to be very certain that your identity is who you say you are, because they know by looking at the credit report and their contact with the credit reporting agency that there is an initial fraud alert on your account. So it sort of waves a red flag to a creditor saying, hey, you got to be certain about who this gentleman, who this lady is before you just go ahead and issue credit.
Huh, that's interesting. You know, Ryan, not too long ago, my credit, I received a statement, and it stated $16, $15.95 for something, and I, for the life of me, never remember ever ordering that. So I called the credit card company, and I questioned them as to what this was and things of that nature, and they, first of all, recognized it was from Florida. And second of all, the individual on my behalf called the number that they had, and it was no longer working. So next thing you know, I'm going to, I'm being switched to the credit fraud investigation program. Should I have also then filed a police report, you know, for $16?
Well, you got to figure out whether there are some telltale signs that it's been identity theft. There are cases where credit card numbers have been transposed, perhaps. There may be cases where someone obtained your credit card and only did a little bit of damage. You certainly can file a police report, but I would see whether it's more than just that one single charge. If you see some kind of pattern, or if there's multiple errors on your credit report, if you see new lines of credit that you've definitely not opened yourself, if you start getting bills that aren't familiar to you from credit cards you didn't know you had, those are the times where you really want to consider yourself a potential identity theft victim and take action. If you see one single charge, it certainly could be identity theft, and it's a great idea to request credit reports to make sure that everything looks solid in your name with your social security number. But you can always call the credit card company as well. Let them know the situation and see about their recommendation about whether you should just be issued a new card or whether the charge just needs to be disputed. Because there are certainly cases where single charges have occurred that a consumer may forget about, or they may call it something different on the credit card statement. So I don't want to tell everybody to file a police report, but you look at the signs of identity theft. Look at the credit errors that might be on your report. Look for multiple charges. Look for some of those red flags. And when in doubt, follow through and do that police report. Report it to our office. Of course, contact whatever bank or institution you have received the erroneous charge from, because you want to make sure to get that taken off the bill, and also investigate whether there are more cases that may be a telltale sign of identity theft.
Well, I know that the credit card company seemed to be aware of this particular scam because they started questioning different things about it, and it was sort of like a pre-questioning, this has already occurred 30 or 40 other times.
I mean, there are a lot of schemes out there that may result in erroneous charges on your telephone bill and or your credit card bill. A lot of us are on websites every single day. Sometimes we go to new websites where there's a lot of fine print. There may be boxes that are ticked and you click yes, not really understanding exactly what you were agreeing to. There can be all kinds of ways that charges can come onto our accounts. So for that reason, we want to make sure that people do all their due diligence. And if you're ever going to be doing any kind of credit card transaction, any kind of banking transaction, don't use public Wi-Fi. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity on a different program, but only use public Wi-Fi for things that you wouldn't mind someone else seeing that's in the room.
That's interesting. You know, we were also talking at lunchtime that theft of credit really doesn't come necessarily from credit cards, but it comes from a variety of different ways. Has your office noticed as students and individuals that get into the workplace and they try to use their due diligence, but sometimes they do things that they don't realize that it's against the law. Like
we see all kinds of identity theft. We see credit card identity theft is obviously fairly common for us, unfortunately, at this point.
Yeah.
We've had well over 3,000 identity theft notifications in Ohio just since we created the identity theft unit three years ago. But we also see tax identity theft. We see a lot of consumers hit with a letter from the Internal Revenue Service stating that the service had already received a tax return in their name and that they need to work out why there's a duplicative return that they are legitimately trying to fill out. And that happens certainly at the state level as well. We see medical identity theft, criminal identity theft. And we even see foster kids get their identity stolen, probably because their social security number, their identifiable information is in more databases with more reach to people than other citizens. So we see a bent towards some of those folks encountering identity theft as well.
Our driver's license, at least for the state of Ohio, I'm not sure about the surrounding states' driver's license, but that carries on a lot of personal data too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And these days when we're talking about so many consumers being online and exposing some information, we're talking about a mother's maiden name, our ATM PIN code, all the passwords of all the websites and accounts that we visit on a regular basis, date of birth, mother's maiden name. There's just a litany of information that we now need to keep to ourselves. When before we may have been more casual about sharing something like our date of birth or where we were born or our mother's maiden name. It's that much more important now that we keep that information to ourselves, especially if it's ever being used as a password reset question online or to fill out any type of credit application.
That is interesting. I know on Facebook, on Twitter, and many of the other social media programs, each one has some information that you would like to share, such as your date of birth, city that you grew up at, your high school, where you work, and things of that nature. And I think most individuals take for granted that information is only going to be used in a positive light.
And they also, I think, take for granted that it's going to disappear at some point.
Yes.
They don't think about 10 years down the road
Yes.
when they're getting a first job or a new job or need some kind of security clearance, whether something's going to come back to haunt them. And what we tell, especially kids, but it's really a good lesson for everyone of all ages, is that if you are posting it online, pretend like it's going to be around forever, because it very well might be.
Well,
people could
that's
save
true.
Screenshots, people can archive websites, there's lots of things that can happen once you put data into a social networking site.
And I found that individuals that do use a lot of social media, it's okay, but there has to become a responsibility on whatever data comes on there. So I always recommend, would your mother approve whatever you put on the on any of the on the social media?
Yeah, sure.
So I noticed on your identity theft self-help guide, you had a lot of really good ways to identify theft and the prevention tips, etc. Let's go through a couple of them. You mentioned about the credit reports. I like credit card nuts.
Oh, you were going to say Credit Karma?
creditkarma.com.
We definitely know consumers are looking into
Yes.
those ways. One website we promote an awful lot is really the official website for requesting your annual credit report once a year, and that's annualcreditreport.com.
They are another good organization.
We can't really validate any of the for-profit folks, but annualcreditreport.com is a sure way of getting a credit report if one is out there in your name.
Yeah.
And again, that's annualcreditreport.com, and that came out several years ago when the federal law was passed that allows us to get a credit report from each one of the 3 credit bureaus every single year. You can get them all at once. Some people like to get one every 4 months so that they can get a more year-round picture of whether their credit history is true and accurate. Those are the kinds of things you need to do to try to catch identity theft. Getting those credit reports are essential whether you're young or whether you're old. If you're young, you may not have one, and that's a reasonable response from the credit bureau if you're young. But if you have a full credit report, you need to scrutinize that and make sure that there are not unfamiliar charges, unfamiliar banks, unfamiliar accounts, unfamiliar mortgage loans, auto loans that have been taken out in your name without your authorization. And if that has happened, you need to correct it with the credit reporting agency, but also take those additional steps we talked about if you're a victim of identity theft.
And my wife and I each go into our own specific credit report, and we, our joint one, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But in essence, we go into it every 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very, very important to also get some of the notification of alerts from either creditkarma.com or from Annual Credit Report. Be aware that annualcreditreport.com does charge for your credit score.
Credit scores are something that does cost a small amount of money these days. The federal law only guarantees you a report, not the actual score.
Right.
But another advent that we've seen is some credit cards are even putting credit scores on their cardholders' monthly statements. Mm-hmm. So there are all kinds of ways these days, and none of it is a telltale sign of exactly what your score is, because the bank or the creditor may end up using a little different kind of a metric.
Yes.
But at least gives us an idea. If we have an abnormally low credit score when we know we should have good credit and we have for a long time, if that's out of character, that is an identity theft warning. That's a red flag. If you see something drop and you're not sure why, it may be because somebody has used your information without your permission.
A couple other things is monitor your bank account statements regular. I have talked with a lot of business people, and part of the business is understanding your finances. Mm-hmm. And sometimes business owners, when they get the information, unless someone says anything from the bank or the institutions, that information is sort of put aside for another time. It is very important to check your bank accounts. Information.
And remember, these days with technology, we can check bank accounts virtually 24/7. You don't have to wait till that statement comes in the mail. You can find an unauthorized charge almost in real time these days. So that's when you want to get on the phone to the credit card company and figure out where the discrepancy is. And also remember, don't check those credit card accounts using the public Wi-Fi. Do that secure in your own home.
Very, very, very true. Another one that I really like is update your computer software and mobile applications regularly. Now, why is that?
Well, the truth is that some security issues don't come into play when they release the first version of an operating system or an internet browser or even an antivirus program. So it's important with all 3 of those kinds of programs that you keep everything up to date and up to speed. And we would recommend at the Ohio Attorney General's office that if possible, you have a setting on a computer that would allow it to automatically update those kinds of programs. In other words, if you're given the choice as a consumer, opt to say yes, so you can just set it and not have to rely on your own memory to constantly go and update the programs.
Another point is shred documents containing personal information. So in other words, just ripping it up isn't good enough?
Not good enough. They can be pieced back together, making it as difficult as possible for the thieves that will go through dumpsters. They will go through unlocked mailboxes. Identity thieves will stop at nothing to get your personal information. So if you have confidential information, even just your name, address, phone number, a credit card account number, a partial credit card account number, take all of that information and when in doubt, shred it. And make sure it's a good cross-cut shredder or a confetti type shredder, so that it's that much more difficult for someone to piece it back together again. We also have communities across the state of Ohio, some of which have shred it days where you can bring it to a facility like a community resource center and they will shred your documents right in front of you. Or they take it and have a service apply their shredding to documents. So it's really important that we just don't throw things away, that we actually shred them into as fine and minuscule of pieces as possible.
Well, I know that you have a lot of really good information. Do you have the website and the phone numbers that we can show the listening audience, and then we'll say it for the radio? I know that you're very easy to find on the internet. It's Ohio Attorney General, one word.
Yep.
.gov.
Absolutely. And our toll-free number is 800-282-0515. So that's ohioattorneygeneral.gov. And it's 800-282-0515. And I know during the week, they stay till 7 p.m. So we're very consumer friendly. We want to be able to address your complaint. And you can use that phone number not just for a complaint about identity theft or a complaint about a consumer issue. You can use that for whatever you might need from the Ohio Attorney General's office. There are multiple sections that we have at the Attorney General's office. We deal with everything from crime victims compensation to charitable law to consumer protection to workers' compensation. There's a number of sections in our office that interacts with the public on a regular basis and may need services from the Ohio Attorney General's office.
And even if you are not from Ohio, my recommendation is at least get on there and take a look, because there's a lot of information that can help you. Ryan, it has been a pleasure. Thank you very much for coming and talking with us. At 2 o'clock, you're going to be speaking on Tech Talk.
I look forward to it.
With Kingsley Meyer and Mike Thompson, in which they're going to be talking about cybersecurity. So letting us know what we should or should not do. I'm Patrick. Thank you for listening.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. It's great to be on the air with you.